Viva la revolution! So have you, in the last 24 hours, done anything spontaneous that you didn't plan to do just because you felt a prompting in your heart? To be a kingdom person means we walk with the awareness that God is in us and wants to speak to us and wants to be active in the world through us. We are His hands and feet, the body of Christ. So I encourage us to stay awake and go through the day listening. The good soldier does not become so preoccupied with civilian affairs that he forgets to be listening to his commanding officer. So pay attention, stay awake, all right? I want to talk today about the difference between kingdom communication and magic. And the reason I want to do that is because what I see going on today is a lot of magic. This is an old volume of Cicero's, several of Cicero's essays. The one I'm talking about here is on the nature of the gods. And in it, he has this on his treatise on fate as well. He talks about how he's poking fun at the diviners of his day who would try to discern the will of God, of the gods by various gimmicks. They would sometimes cut open animals and examine their guts. Somehow they could discern God's will that way. Or the way the birds are flying, their bird formation, or astrological signs, comets and whatnot, or rolling the dice. Or they had all these different ways of discerning the will of the gods. And the purpose is to, on the one hand, not to get the gods to get ticked off at you. You don't want that, because then bad things will happen. But hopefully you'll get the gods on your side and things will go well with you. Magic is all about manipulating the spiritual realm for your own benefit. That's magic. And you have all these gimmicks to do it. And notice there that in magic, nothing depends on your communion with God, your relationship with God, your love for the gods, and nothing depends on your character. Whereas in the kingdom, as we've been saying in these video blogs, in the kingdom, everything hangs on your character, on developing a capacity as you're seeking God and learning to listen to God. Everything depends on our communion with God. All kingdom communication arises out of communion with God. And so it's preeminently important that we spend time communing with God and having our character formed out of our relationship with God. What I see going on a lot today is instead magic, Christian magic. A lot of it goes by what I've sometimes called sign theology. And this is where people try to discern what God is saying through different signs. They treat the world as sort of a zodiac or a cryptogram or a tea leaf, and you're trying to discern patterns that tell you what God is saying, just like in Cicero's day. It's really no different. What invariably happens is that people project onto the ambiguity of the world their own wishes or their fears. If they tend to be greedy people, they tend to project on the ambiguity of the world, thinking they discern signs, a pattern or whatever. They project their wishes, and invariably God ends up confirming that they should in fact get what they want to get. They do what they want to do anyways. It's just that now they've got God's confirmation on it. And people who tend to loathe themselves and to live in fear, well, they project their fears into this ambiguity, and it always ends up, God ends up confirming their fears. God's mad at them, God's punishing them, or something of the sort is happening. You find what you're looking for. It's like looking for the proverbial face in the cloud. You screen out whatever doesn't fit your presupposition, and you notice what does fit your presupposition, and boom, God confirms your presupposition. So there's this guy I knew who was in this estranged marriage, really on the rocks, and he was separated from his wife, but he's driving to the counseling session. He gets a flat tire. Guess what? It's a sign. God obviously doesn't want his marriage to work, which is kind of convenient because he had this eyes for this other chick anyway, so there you go. Or this young lady I knew, a very troubled young lady, finally got her to go to a counselor. But as she gets there, the parking lot was full, and so she was late getting the appointment, and she ended up missing it. The sign. She told me, she goes, God obviously doesn't want me healed because God hates me. As though God was going to manipulate every driver who was entering or leaving that parking lot just so he could make sure that she didn't get a parking space. See, this is sign theology. A lot of it goes by coincidences. You know, they often say in the blueprint worldview, there are no coincidences. And see, if there are no coincidences, well, then God can speak through these apparently chance things. But there's you know, it's not chance. It's all divine design. So a little bit like this. My daughter, God bless her, she's so sweet. When she was like 14, 15 years old, she went to a youth trip to Valley Fair, a youth outing. And she came home believing she met the man of her dreams. Yes, he told me, so excited. She knew that God was just saying, this is the man. Here's how. She's standing in line for a ride. She almost didn't go on that ride, but she decided that the last minute she'd go on this ride. She's standing right next to this cute guy. And he almost didn't go on that ride. What are the odds? And it turns out they heard a song playing. Someone had some iPod or something. And they both loved that song. What are the odds? And as they talk a little bit longer, they both loved Justin Timberlake. What are the chances? Now, the fact that everyone makes decisions about what ride to go on, probably 3/4 of the people who were waiting in line there made it at the last moment. That got screened out. The fact that most of the kids loved that particular song got screened out. The fact that most of the kids at that time loved Justin Timberlake, that gets screened out. And all this confirms that this is the man of her dreams. The reality is, as I tried to explain to her, that the odds of those two being in line together, she kept on saying that, what are the chances that we would be together in that line? Well, the chances are exactly what they would be if anyone else was standing next to you in that line. One, next to all the people that are attending Valley Fair that night. But we project on the ambiguity of the world what we want to see. I encourage us to avoid all of that hubbub and that magical stuff. It's got no place in the kingdom. In the kingdom, all communication arises out of communion. So set aside magical thinking and pursue our relationship with God. Learn to hear that still small voice. Go through your day wide awake, listening to the promptings of your heart. Act on those promptings when they're consistent with the character of Christ, and then become the hands and the feet of Jesus. God bless you guys. Seeing you here in the near future. Take care. Viva la revolution.